I'm Jason Klom, and this is Comedy on Vinyl. Album Lyndon Johnson's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the artists Earl Doud and Alan Robin. This year, I almost said. This week, my guest is Colleen Fischer. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. I found, so you're a journalist. I found an article you wrote about listening to vinyl comedy, and I will be honest, most of my guests don't, or that is to say, most people I ask who are roughly your age have never really listened to a comedy album on vinyl. So I want to know how you got into it, why you decided it was important enough to write about, and then we'll get into the record itself.
Okay, so you said my age. I'm 21, just for your listeners, and I work for my college paper, but I bought a record player, or I got my aunt's record player when I was in high school, and then I replaced it recently. This is all not relevant, but I was at a record store, and I came across, actually I think this is probably one of the first albums I bought that was comedy, because I was just flipping through and it was an interesting cover, and I listened to it and I thought it was great. And then shortly after, I found Van Meter's first Family album.
Oh my gosh,
and then I just kept looking for them when I showed up at record stores, and I thought they were great, and I decided we needed something to run for the scene portion, and I was texting the editor, and I just wrote it really quickly because something didn't come together, and I thought it would be interesting and great, and so I did that.
Well, I'm glad you did, because not a lot of people are writing about it, and it's funny, even when like a big story breaks on this podcast. Every time anything is new, it's hard to convince people that is story worthy, even though we've discovered quite a few things on this show. I think we got one or two things covered by like online media, but people don't really care about comedy records on vinyl. So I love that you inherited like a record player and were like, let me put this thing to use. And so for those who don't know, I'm going to put it up. Well, you're not going to be able to see it, but you've seen it. It is a, as you can imagine, a parody of the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. But it is, like the record, a bunch of chopped up images of an actual band, but with not every political person on the album, but a lot of different political figures pasted on. These guys made these kinds of records for years. So what was your perspective? Because honestly, I think when I first picked this up, I knew very little about LBJ and still know just enough. What was your perspective on LBJ and the whole contents of this record?
So, you said 67. When did it come out?
67 apparently, yeah.
Oh, that's a little bit earlier than I thought when listening to it. But I guess that makes sense because like Bobby Kennedy's on that record and he dies in 68. But I'm a history major and 60s buff. So like 64 to 78, you can ask me most things and I can figure it out. And when I picked that record up, I was at like the height of like my Kennedy obsession. And so there's a couple Bobby Kennedy speeches. Jack Kennedy is pretty contextually dead by that time the record was made. And so it was fun because I listened to, so what it does, the record cuts up interviews and speeches with politicians and takes them out of context. And I found it fascinating because, first of all, if I'm coming from a journalist background, I never thought that would fly. Obviously, like, people do it, but in, like, not a professional matter.
Right.
And so I was shocked that it flew in the 60s, especially because of how much slack, like, Van Meter's album got. Considering like that being played over the radio and how like sensitive they were to that would fly coming from a historical context. And then also I thought it was hysterical because if you think about some of the speeches, they're taken so out of context. So like for one of the references that he makes to Bobby Kennedy says like, so we spent this much money on comic books last year. And they context it with his large family. He had a lot of children.
Sure.
And that speech was about poverty in America. So the original, taking it out of such a dark context of like the Mississippi Delta speech that he was giving and putting it in a context that was so comical, like mocking his Irish Catholic family, I ate it up.
Yeah. There are, okay, so it's a relatively short record. So we've got an interview with Senator Everett Dirksen, could not tell you who that is, Lyndon B. Johnson, Governor Reagan, Senator Bobby Kennedy, VP Hubert Humphrey, later Andrew Johnson, Nixon again, and then, he had not been on there again yet, VP Nixon, and then Barry Goldwater. Just for, again, a little bit of context. Let's see, I need to look up, and I think the only interviews were done by a couple of, it was just Earl Down, Alan Robin, and a couple other gentlemen in it. Boy, oh boy, I love that you knew exactly what speech that was being pulled from. So is this stuff immediately evident to you? Because, again, this is built for somebody like you, not me.
Not all of them, obviously. Like, I couldn't tell you. What was the first guy's name?
Everett Dirksen.
Dirksen? Yeah, I couldn't tell you. That one I could just because I think it's been a while, but I think that speech it's of course available on YouTube, and it's a response to a question when he is running for senator, I think, is what that is. So I just had seen the clip. And then I don't listen to a lot of Nixon talking because it makes me angry. So I couldn't tell you what those clips are from. But Kennedy was easy. I think the rest of them are just fun to make fun of, and him.
That's fair.
So no, I couldn't contextualize it all, but I could do that one and a couple of the other ones I could pick up.
Again, it's more than I could. There's a point where in the first track, because I didn't know who Dirksen was and therefore what he sounded like, the edits were cleaner than I expected them, because normally you expect later on they kind of cut off more. So I was like, are they just doing an impression and passing it off as a fake interview cut apart? And then no, clearly that's not the case later on. It's one of those things where a lot of people will bring in an album. Again, it's usually from their own childhood, where it's like, this is from a time, this is a different time, this made a lot of sense then, it was very funny then. Let's talk a little bit then about, let's skip back to the first family, because that was kind of, not only were all these people involved in, there's a lot of, very incestual who was involved in all the first family ripoffs and then the other political things like this. What was your perception of the first family when you first heard it? What about it resonated with you?
Oh, I think it's a great impression. There's a talk about how impressions don't need to be exact. You don't have to look exactly like them and speak exactly like them. You need to get like the persona. I don't know who talks about that, but there's an impressionist who talks. I think it's Bill Hader who talks about it all the time now.
Yeah.
And I think that Van Meter nails it. There's like that clip, I forget what late night show he's on, but he's like doing the hand motions and he's like, there's somebody out here imitating me and he's using and it's just great. So, but I thought, to put that in context with this album, which they of course exist within context, I think that this album's cleverer, and because I would never be able to listen to a political speech, take something, cut it, and then make a joke from it. I just think that that takes a intense amount of forethought and just thought, in the way that when Van Meter made the first family, he had this impression, and it was a little bit like, what can we make Kennedy say that is funny, and let's talk about rubber ducks, which is grand, and I loved it. Of course I love that album, but this one holds a different place in my heart.
What's funny is I came at this album from a slightly different perspective as somebody who's cut something like this together, because I grew up loving that kind of. I think I probably first saw it. Have you ever seen Good Morning Vietnam?
Yes.
Oh, I love that movie. But there's a whole
It's a good
segment
one.
where, and I don't know if the original actual Adrian Cronauer actually did this, but the character played by Robin Williams cuts together interviews of Nixon, and he asks him to describe his testicles. They're soft, squishy, and of no consequence, something to that effect. Very dumb. And I think as a kid, once I had editing capabilities, even just with a cassette, I was like, oh, shit, I can finally do... And it becomes a way of thinking where I think my guess is Doud and Robin heard these interviews and they're just like, oh no, there we go, that's a good punchline, and then they work backward from it. I'm guessing. I mean, that's how I do it.
Yeah.
I know that like my friend and I interviewed a friend of mine, did not tell him he was being recorded because we were being assholes. Again, my best friend. We recorded him and we did lead him into saying things, but you don't often have that opportunity with a politician. Of course, that's, I guess, what The Daily Show ended up becoming a little bit, where they lead them into, those kinds of questions. It's interesting watching the evolution because First Family is relatively gentle in terms of satire. It's barely satire,
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It is very gentle, especially for like the time period it's in. Not to just history buff you at, but
no, please, it's good.
For coming out in 1967, you see like this partisanship in America that's similar to like what we're experiencing now with these figures like Nixon, these large central government and then these calls for socialist reforms and characters like Bobby Kennedy and later Senator like Goldwater. And so then you have like these two systems fighting out, and so putting out an album like this that mocks them both, I think was an interesting thing to do. That's almost an act of unity. Like if a comedian made a stand-up comedian made a set that mocked both Democrats and Republicans equally, I think that holds a different place in my heart, because
Sure.
I think that it's just brilliant because now you get both people listening, but also it's a sense of unity that's amazing. And then as it like moves on, so as time periods move on, of course the 1968 like Democratic Convention has all these like riots and all this hardship, and then it leads to like these changes in political standings. But I think that like this album is reminiscent of a time right before then, like right before everything goes to absolute crap. Like it's getting there, but it's right on the edge. And I think like that's why like listening to albums that existed in that time and haven't been changed at all to fit any other time period is interesting and important.
Yeah. What's interesting too is like what this kind of builds to. I mean, obviously as politics are building to Nixon and what that means to the United States, I wrote a little bit about this before. Like I was forced to pick 5 records that made fun of Nixon, but there are so many more than that.
So many.
And I've got about a dozen of them. And I have not listened to them all because it is relatively the same joke over and over again, but it feels like rather than when The First Family comes out, it's because it's the fastest selling album in history, comedy or otherwise. There are people, I want to say a month later already, have released 5 or 6 their own ideas based off of it. Whereas the Nixon one, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or how you feel about it, the Nixon one feels like, oh no, this is imperative. We have to make fun of this guy so that people continue to remember what a piece of shit he is.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
And so I wasn't old enough to vote in this election that happened. And so I'm also a political science major. And so like it kind of felt like stuff was happening to me at that point. Like I had no like political power. So moving into the comfort of 1967, 1968, which was a similar situation and comparative, and you can read articles and articles and articles comparing the elections, was a source of comfort because, of course, it ends with Nixon getting impeached.
Yes,
so,
right. It's so satisfying.
Yeah. You know what's going to happen. So I like that.
Yeah, no, agreed. It's one of those things where when I was first digging into it, that's what I guess made me feel hopeful. And I think I first started talking about it I think I did a video on it on my YouTube, and I was like, just trying to, I don't know how subtle I was being about it, but I was just like, hey, this is important to do. Hey, this is, how they're making these records then. And, it's not like, there's also the whole thing, it's like, comedy's never going to change the world, but at the very least it is there to hammer at you and remind you it's okay to make fun of these people. It's okay to even hate them. It's okay to question them. And that was the big thing. Like, it's just weird. It's interesting that we've got, everybody talks about the loss of innocence being JFK being assassinated. Mm-hmm. But it is this gradual loss of innocence from there to, holy shit, we have openly now seen that that a president stole the election and did it in the most criminal way possible. Like, it's such a quick expansion of distrust. And I don't know what that's attributable to. Maybe you have some thoughts on it, but again, comedy catches up. It's at relatively the same speed.
Well, I think, yeah, I totally agree. And I think, watching people make fun of Trump for me isn't very satisfying because I just listen to it and then at the end I'm angry. I don't get any, therapy from it. There's no release. And of course, no offense to people who agree with him, but I don't get any release from it. And listening to people make fun of Nixon, I get that release because, what I was talking about with, what's going to happen to him, and it's not happening to you. Yeah. Vietnam didn't happen to me. Right. It's a big issue, but he's not sending me or anyone else to war in the same way that when they made fun of Nixon, it was so prevalent and important to them to be doing so. And so it puts a certain amount of distance. Time gives people distance and time to heal, even if you weren't there, which I think,
What, I guess I didn't ask this, what first got you so interested in the time period you're concentrating on that's most interesting to you? What sucked you in? Maybe one thing, maybe a ton of things, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I think, in high school and grade school, there's this focus on World War II, especially for young boys. Mm-hmm. And then when I moved on to college, in high school, I was getting interested in it. And then when I moved on to college, I'm now at an all-girls school, St. Mary's. And so that disappeared. This obsession with World War II just disappeared. We barely touch on World War II in our history classes. And instead it became focused, you become more focused with conniving ideas of power when you're in an all-girls school, how to navigate power in a way that's interesting. And so the 60s is full of that. So for example, you brought up the Nixon thing, how Nixon stole election flat out and did that, which is insane, and he got tried, and that's what happened. But there's a lot of controversy over the 1960 election of Kennedy because his dad reportedly bought Chicago with Mayor Daley. And so there's this back and forth of public displays of ignoring the Constitution and private displays of ignoring the Constitution and how you play into them. And I just think that's fascinating. And of course the switch from political systems and primaries.
Oh, right. No, I can see that. That makes sense. Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, I that is a very good point. It also, again, it's something that I think of a lot in terms of Kennedy, where I am willfully ignorant a lot of the times because I know all this shit he did, or roughly, but who the fuck isn't charmed by him, and who the fuck isn't charmed by Von Meter pretending to be him? Now, Von Meter's charm is a separate story altogether. I don't know if you heard my interview with his widow. I got a different perspective on Von Meter. Worth listening to. I hope she doesn't. I don't know that I like Von Meter as a person anymore. However, find him fascinating.
Yeah, it is really fascinating.
Whew, boy. I mean, his life fell apart because of JFK being, and the quote that is, again, I think I might get it wrong every time, but Lenny Bruce came on stage the night that JFK was assassinated, said, well, Von Meter's fucked, which is one of the funniest, darkest jokes I've ever heard. But apparently it was true, though. Apparently it was true. He lost everything for a while.
Yeah, another comedic genius. Because I'm also... So my two obsessions that coexist are the Kennedys and the Beats. So Lenny Bruce is another one of my peak obsessions. But.
I can understand that. Have you seen?
Yeah.
This is a totally historically inaccurate show, but very pretty. Have you seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
Oh yes, historically inaccurate.
Woof, and comedically historically inaccurate too. There's so much to just that's thrown out the window. But I love how it looks.
I know it looks beautiful, and I love her.
Sure.
As a young girl who talks a lot.
Sure,
Love
you know,
her.
hey, you know, you got to see yourself reflected somewhere. It's good that that's happening, right?
Yeah, but I think I was once on a date and I was monologuing, and the poor boy, stopped me and goes, "Have you ever seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?" There wasn't another date after that.
That's really funny.
It was tragic, but yeah, I love that show, and I think, well, I have problems with that show, not just because Lenny Bruce or the jokes, but I think when they included Lenny Bruce, they should have included everybody else who was there.
I mean, they might as well have, yeah.
Yeah, why not? Like, just put her into the story and include, like, I have a friend who, she's a really famous comedian. Who is the female comedian who was working? Joan Rivers? Was it Joan Rivers? Yeah, that was working in New York at that time, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically kind of roughly what Mrs. Maisel's based off of. Her and Phyllis Diller a little bit too, sure.
And then there's that, in the new season, they have that bassist who's based off a real person, but then they didn't name her.
Oh, and she got pissed. She got pissed about it.
She should get pissed.
Yeah, because
they like took a story, and they have like that artist who they like gave the characteristics of like a Kerouacian character, like just standing on the bars and pointing. And I'm like, just make him Jack Kerouac.
Yeah, why not?
It bothers me, but whatever.
No, that's fair. You know, one of my mentors was a beat author who nobody's ever heard of. His name was Fielding Dawson, but it's kind of crazy too when like I will watch that show and names of people he knew and mentioned are brought up. But again, like you say, it's like they are in passing. Like there's her and what's his name? Chuck, the guy who played Chuck. He what's his name? Whatever. The really handsome guy that she's. I
know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and they go through a bar, and he's like, "Oh my God, that's Franz Klein," and then they just walk out the door. They don't explain who Franz Klein is. I barely know, and still he was a friend of a friend, you know. And it's weird to have these historical bits and pieces in passing, and also like she's got somebody bootlegs her album at the end of season 1. Not really a thing that happened with comedy records almost ever. I'm not saying it never happened, but rarely are there. I have one of the few ever on my wall right now, and I don't know that they happened that early on. I want to ask my friends. I have some friends who have like 7,000 comedy records, and you just want to be like, what weird shit do you have in there?
Do they listen to all of them?
That's what I want to know. I've got 700, and I've only heard about 150 of them, and I don't know if I'll ever get through them. And
I have like 100 records, period, and I haven't listened to all of them.
I would never have listened to this if you hadn't asked me to. If you hadn't said, let's talk about that, I don't know that I would have gotten around to it. You know?
I think, it's crazy. And now I don't dig through the comedy bin as much as I should. I've been keeping an eye open I want to find spoken word poetry on records, but it's not happening. But, yeah, I think, like, that first album, like, buying LBJ's Lonely Heart Club Band, which is interesting in itself because of the title and the reference, but I'm putting it on and hearing voices that were never meant to have a person. So, like, I have John Mulaney albums and on vinyl, and Penn and Oswalt on vinyl. Mm-hmm. And they're wonderful, but, like, I've seen John Mulaney live, which I'm bummed
Amazing.
I'm such a hipster about him. I try so hard not to be a gatekeeper, but I'm so mad because I paid, like, $30, and now everybody loves him, and I'm never going to get to see him again, but it's fine. But I'm so sad about it. I was teasing someone because I watched Mulaney. Mm-hmm. And I was so young that I hadn't seen Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
You're going to be very disappointed in me. And so I watched Mulaney thinking it was original. And I was like, how could you ever cancel this? And, of course, it was canceled for very good reason because it was... he's great, but that show wasn't.
I never saw it. So
yeah.
was it essentially Seinfeldy?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same. He would end. I consciously remember bringing out my flip phone and texting my best friend about it because we were following his career on SNL.
Okay.
And he would do like a sitcom thing, usually straight off of his first set of stand-ups. Like the prostate exam was an episode, and then it would end with him doing stand-up, like Seinfeld.
Okay.
On the set, they would dock in the set, and then he would do stand-up. And I thought it was genius, which
Sure.
it was. It just wasn't his idea. But
That's so funny. I honestly, because I've never seen it, I had no idea. And you will not upset me. I don't really care for Seinfeld. But I did when it was out. I was, I saw it was when it was originally on. That and Friends I liked at the time. I could not care for either of them less. So don't worry about it. You're not going to offend me. News Radio is my show. That is a great show. Brilliant show. Everybody should watch that show. I want to talk about a politically aware show.
What was I going to say? I was going to say something before I get digressed. Oh, those comedy albums. So when you see John Mulaney live, he's aware of his presence. He's in a suit, and
Sure.
there's jokes where he'll flip the cord and he'll make eye contact or look over his shoulder or take a drink of water. He's aware that you're watching him.
Sure.
So when you listen to him on vinyl, it's a different experience, but you feel like you're missing that. You feel like you're missing seeing them.
Okay.
When you listen to albums like LBJ Lonely Hearts Club Band, you know that it was meant for this experience. It was meant for you to sit in a room with a coffee or whatever and listen to it. And it wouldn't exist in a visual experience. And I grew up with only visual comedy.
Sure.
Only slapstick original comedy. I mean visual comedy. So having a completely auditory experience that was reliant on it being auditory was a new experience. One that was old but new for me, and I enjoyed that.
Well, you're bringing up, first of all, that's amazing because I love that this is such a new thing for you. That's great. That is amazing. I mean, the thing about this album that hurt my brain was, why the hell do they have an audience? They have pictured the audience on the back, and I was like, is this all canned? I can't tell if it's canned, but these people seem to be enjoying the shit out of the show.
Probably money, right?
Right? They got
pay for tickets.
There. Yeah, right. I really want to know. If somebody told me, "Hey, come see a comedy show," my first question is, "Okay, maybe what's it about?" And if they said, "Oh, a bunch of people are going to talk to a tape recorder," you'd be like, "I'm good. Thank you so much. Have a great day." But maybe at the time, they're like, "Hey, this is going to be the next First Family." That's all I can think is this is the next First Family. Guys, come on, join on in. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah. It was probably something like that, right? I also think that being there must have taken away from the experience because all of the mystery is gone.
That's what I would think.
You can't picture it. Because there are times where when I put this album on, I also have a collection of historical albums, and I got it from a bin that was just non-music albums.
Okay.
And I picked it up, and I was cute in that it was a comedy album by the cover, of course, but not enough that when I put it on, I did second think, is this real? And it took me through the first interview to be like, no. But, yeah, I think that having that on stage just would take you away from it. I don't even understand why you would laugh. I don't know why it would be funny.
Right. It's interesting. And again, I think it tracks so much for you because you know some context too, but it does not, none of these feel like belly laugh moments, even at the funniest moments. There's a bit where they cut Richard Nixon in. They say, "Hey, we hear you, Mr. Nixon. We hear you do a wonderful impression of Mr. Eisenhower. Can we hear it?" And it is just him. It is him fumfering over and over again, and the gag is good. And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cute." Even if I don't know if that was Eisenhower's deal, I get it. I get what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the audience is eating it up, and I'm like, "Is it that funny? I don't know." Couldn't tell you. Do you laugh out loud listening to this record at all, or is it just I get it?
Bo Burnham has that joke that if you watch this alone, hopefully you've snuffed through your nose once or twice.
Right.
I've only ever listened to comedy albums alone, so I don't think I've laughed out loud at all.
Yeah.
For comedy albums, but I probably like sighed and giggled the couple times I listened.
I'm trying to think of albums that really genuinely make me laugh out loud. The one that was sitting on here that I talked to somebody a few weeks ago, which was a Smothers Brothers album, I think that does make me laugh out loud genuinely. The Smothers Brothers are brilliant. And I mean, if you want to talk about political comedy, eventually that shit gets real political to the point where they get canned. But that stuff's fascinating. But it is rare, same thing, rare that I listen to something and laugh out loud if I'm on my own.
I misspoke. I did laugh out loud at the Nichols and May album.
Oh.
I was gifted 2 different copies of that. 2 different
Which one?
friends. The one, the doctor one.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah. 2 different friends went to record stores over the summer and brought them to me in the winter. And so I have 2 copies of that. I haven't had the heart to give either way.
Of course.
But yeah, that one's funny. They're funny.
They're
and
geniuses.
And having the representation of a woman helps. I laugh at them.
Big time. Well, I've been trying to do a breakdown of my own collection because I'm going to start doing some more videos where I talk about a certain chunk of my collection. And I'm like, I have to do black artists. I have to do female artists. And like going through, I'm like, fuck, I'm part of the fucking problem because I buy so many white dude records and I acknowledge it, but that is not a solution to the problem. So at the very least, I'm going to be digging these out and like, but yeah, that's one where it's man and a woman, not as many standalone, female albums also that people even pay attention to. I've got a few rare ones that I've never heard of, that nobody's ever heard of. It might not be.
Yeah, I don't think I have
great,
one.
Yeah, see, that's just it. Like, I would. Joan Rivers is a good one to start with. Holy shit! I like if you want to. Now she's fucking mean, but I mean that's her deal. That's always been her style. Phyllis Diller also so good. Rusty Warren. If you've never heard Rusty Warren, she is a friend of mine. She's like 92, 93 now. Brilliant woman. She's worth listening to. Yeah, those are all. Yeah, I don't know, not particularly political, but yeah, it's worth looking those up, those particular ladies up, and then and by the way, anybody listening who's got a female comic we've never covered on the show, please email me. Do that, jason@comedyonvinyl.com. I would love to hear more. This album is very goofy. It's fun. How much did I pay for it? $4? Okay, well, all right. I can't tell if it was worth it or not. Maybe. It was fun listening to. It was fun knowing that I was going to talk to somebody who knows some shit. I
don't know if I know some shit. But...
You know more shit than I do. Do you have any others that are of this vein in your collection, other political comedy records, or is this the only, other than The First Family, I guess?
I think that's about it. I don't have any... I don't seek them out. If I find them, I'll look at them. I almost bought... What was the First Family? Did they make one about Reagan?
Yes, The First Family Rides Again, where Rich Little plays Ronald Reagan. Von Meter's on that, too, briefly.
Yeah, I thought about buying that one. I don't have very many historical comedy albums. I should look more into them. I just don't.
Well, I mean, a lot of them are like The First Family, though. Like, there are a few that are, again, other than the Nixon one, a lot of them are not cash grabs. I don't want to treat them all as if they're super cynical, but a lot of them are very similar. The Reagan ones, that's another boost. All of a sudden, there's a shitload of Reagan records. I've got a few of those too. Not as many Nixons, but they're worth sampling. I have not heard that one though. I do need to listen to that. I have it. I'm obsessed with The First Family. Why would I not listen to it? But
I think. Well, I listened to your podcast about The First Family. Oh,
yeah. Where another person way younger than me schools the hell out of me on history. It was great. I loved that so much.
Yes, it happens to the best of us. I think that album was genius in a way that whenever anybody else tries to do it, it's automatically gonna not be worth it. So I liked that this one tried something else. Like, I know that it's not new. Like, everybody's thought about doing this, and obviously you did it as a kid. But I like that it wasn't an album of impressions, because I feel like The First Family did that, and it did it brilliantly. But yeah, and I was thinking about this because I studied abroad in DC this semester, and I actively thought about saying this on the podcast, but I was walking past the White House, and man was doing this bit. The bit was he would scream something that made no sense, and then he would play Donald Trump out of context. So he was like doing like the same format, and I was like, that's so interesting, because I just wouldn't like think of it working in this time period. And I didn't even giggle at what he was saying, because he was just making like obscene jokes. But I think that I felt so, when I listened to it, it felt so derivative of the time period, because it relies on this respect for politicians, like the respect that the Kennedys got. Like, that's why I feel like why Van Meter's album worked so well is because no one would do it. Yeah. Like, no one understood that that was socially acceptable, and then it sold.
Right.
And I think that's like so interesting, and Van Meter does it with class always.
Yeah.
Every time he did that impression, he did it with class. And I think that as time moved on, impressions and taking politicians out of context and mocking politicians became ruthless. And so I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing. Like, I think we should make fun of politicians, but I don't want to sit and listen to you just bash a politician.
Right.
It just, I'm like, then you run. Like, I just like don't see the point. And I think like that's the political science major in me, that I want comedians to not have respect for the politicians, but not ruthlessly bash them. I just don't think it's funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, from a comedic standpoint, I get that. There is a point where it becomes, a la Don Quixote tilting at windmills. I mean, that's kind of what Lenny Bruce does later on in his career, where he's like, hey, I'm going to read court transcripts. It's like, Lenny, come on, bud. Come on. Just dial it back. Get to a point where it's peak funny. It can be a little mean, but peak funny. Yeah, there is definitely you have to dial it in a certain way for it to still be funny and still technically be comedy, because at some point it is just literally standing out in front of the White House screaming.
Yeah, exactly. Like, finding that point is like why comedians make money.
Yeah.
And of course, like, when Lenny Bruce like reads those court scripts, it comes off as a little bitter. And I think like that's what comedians need to avoid. Like, I can't speak. I would never get up on a stage and do comedy. But if you come off as bitter, it's no longer funny. And I don't think like these people ever come off as bitter. They're never even criticizing the politics really much. They're just cracking jokes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's also the argument is always, well, that, again, to go back to Mel Brooks a little bit, the thing about Mel Brooks is he's always said, my goal is always, the best way to defeat Hitler was make him funny, make people laugh at him. Not laugh at anything he did, but laugh at him. And it can't just be vitriol to do the way he does, to put Hitler on ice, like literally somebody dancing around dressed as Hitler to make Hitler look like a fucking idiot. Like, that's its own thing. And it does have its own place and its own element in comedy where, yeah, you make a very good point about the bitterness. I think there is a fine line to walk where, like John Mulaney, go back to John Mulaney. Every joke he's ever made about a politician I don't like, I find hilarious. And I think it's his delivery. It's just his means of delivery. He's got this, I don't know, too casual. He's very good. It's frustrating to watch how good he is.
Brilliant, right? And I think, well, like going back to like my long-term relationship with John Mulaney, but I think that he did something that was kind of interesting, because when I was in high school, it was me and another girl, and no one else gave a crap about comedy. I don't think another person in my high school watched SNL. And
wow.
I think we would talk about comedy, and then everyone would just leave the room.
That's interesting.
It just wasn't a part of the conversation in our high school. And so, thank God, my taste in comedy is completely reliant on her taste in comedy. But I think, thank God that she was there, because I don't think I would have, done anything, I wouldn't have been interested in comedy. I wouldn't have taken a 6-hour bus to Ohio to see John Mulaney. I wouldn't have done any of that without having like that one other person. And I think that, like, I remember when like Pete Davidson was just on SNL. Like, he was just getting on SNL, and he was 21 years old. And we were like, no, he was like 19, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah, he was very young.
Yeah, he was like 19. And we were sitting there awe-shook. We were like, I don't understand how, like, this happens. So it's just, I'm off topic.
No, you're fine, please.
It starts with, like, those little things that, like, get you into comedy. And John Mulaney, like, traced comedy and popularity for me. Because I would crack John Mulaney references and people would stare at me blind dumb. Never heard a thing all the way up to my freshman year of college. And then suddenly I look into like the main like room at college and everybody has a John Mulaney sticker on their computer in like a 6-month time period.
Wow.
And then with John Mulaney came constant talk about stand-up comedy. Like just constant. Like if you look at Netflix, well, stand-up comedy is cheap to produce and gets a lot of views. Like, I embroidered. I was at camp counseling. One of my friends had a pair of chacos that said "Choose Happy" on the back, and I was like, I love those. I want something on my chacos, but I'm not paying $75 to get them embroidered, and I can't pick the same thing as you. And she's like, well, pick something that makes you happy. And I was like, well, chocolate and John Mulaney. So my chacos have the name John Mulaney on the back of them. And no one asked me about it, but also no one understood. Like, it was a joke for me. And that's it. It was a joke for me, and that's it, because no one understood. And then suddenly I can bring up in a conversation, who's your favorite comedian? And people have answers. And I'm not mad about it. I love it.
Sure. It's interesting to go through life, especially, I had a friend who definitely, there's no doubt, we both informed one another's sense of humor, and it's still that way. We shared records. I mean, that is one difference because, I had my mom's record player, so we shared records and we shared tapes. Like, we made friends over a Weird Al tape. So I don't know, I think it's critical to becoming somebody who loves comedy. There are a lot of people who sit in the room and try and figure it out on their own. That was also me. But then there's people who you get to share it with somebody else, and it becomes transcendental. It becomes a brand new social thing.
Yeah, totally.
And I love that yours was John Mulaney. But, and you've finally gotten that thing, though, that, a lot of us get, where it's like, I loved that person. God damn it, that was my person. How dare you also have my person?
There's girls on TikToks like putting on makeup to John Mulaney. And I'm like, people mocked me for loving John Mulaney. You don't get to do this. But of course they do. And like, good for him. Like, he's making bank. He's being successful. Like, I shouldn't gatekeep, but
it's okay. It's a gentle gatekeeping. You're not being a jerk about it. You're just like, you're a little bitter about it, but that's fine.
I'm completely bitter about it. I'm so bitter. I think that all those girls should be sat down and have to sit through Mulaney the TV show.
I love that. Oh, that's so good. Hey, you know what? You paid your dues.
I know.
You watched the show. I now kind of almost want to see that show. Now that you're telling me what it is.
Good luck finding it. I think he's actively tried to hide it off of every form.
If I'm not mistaken, former guest of this show, Griffin Newman, was on that show briefly. I don't know if he was on it or like was almost on it. I'm trying to remember the situation. He talks about it a bit on his own podcast. So the show has come. I've talked to people about it before. I definitely heard it, but I did not know that was the format. So now you've told me. Okay, let's talk about your future in listening to political comedy. Are you going to seek out more records like this or similar?
I should. I think I have like a list of records that I want. I think I prefer comedy records when they come to me.
Okay.
Which is funny, but I think I never know like where to look, and I guess like I don't talk to enough people now that are like informing comedy choices, especially in historical comedy, that I could like look up an album and then have the confidence in my sense of comedy to purchase that album online for like $20.
Right.
But if it's in a bin and I come to it, it's a different experience because you feel like you found like this little piece of history.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate it more.
Agreed.
So I'll keep looking in the bins. And
as you should.
I'll keep flipping through copies of Van Meter's First Family because they're always there. There's always like 3.
Yep.
And then I'll maybe find something else. And Bill Cosby records at record stores. It's like Bill Cosby, Van Meter, then maybe something else.
Yeah,
and that's not true. I just got a Carlin record, so I shouldn't say that. So I
Wait,
just
which
got
one
a
did you
comedy
get?
record.
They're all pretty good.
I have it on a PDF. It's the one with like a ticket, and it has a really long title.
Wait a minute. People are gonna hate me for not remembering. It's not An Evening with Wally Londo, is it?
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
There. I don't need to look it up on my spreadsheet.
That's great. No, I'm glad. Wow, that's good. I love that you're delving into your first Carlin, and it's older Carlin, because
yeah, it's old Carlin. Someone gave it to me. One of my aunt's friends.
Yes, good.
Gave
That's how
me
you
her
get
record collection.
So good.
Yeah. Well, I think if I would concede to the pressure to become a lawyer, like First Amendment law is the most interesting law, and of course, like that's why comedy is so interesting to me, or one of the, like, in an academic sense, because of artists like Carlin and Lenny Bruce, who were actively, I feel like Carlin obviously less so because he came later, but who were actively censored in a way that I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. Just
I know.
insane to me.
It's one of those weird... Yeah, it's a weird moment in history that because I was born when I was born, which is after all that shit happened, it didn't seem possible. Even though listening to him talk about the seven words you can't say on television still seems rebellious when he's doing it in the record. Like, I still was watching TV where people were finally being able to say shit or whatever, but so you can't totally... I mean, if it wasn't for him, I mean, they're legitimately, like, we would be potentially more censored, although we're going down a hill right now where it might end that way anyway. But yeah, no, he's fascinating and definitely worth digging into. Also, speaking of Lenny Bruce, I'd forgotten this. I interviewed a guy named Jeffrey Weissman, who's very fascinating and very interesting. He's in Back to the Future 2 and 3. He replaced, he played the new George McFly in a lot of makeup. He has a quick story about Lenny Bruce because his mom helped bail him out once, but then refused to ever let him ride in her car again because he swore in front of her child because he was in the car at the time, which I thought was delightfully ironic. It's really funny. There's some pretty good stuff in there. But yeah, no, I can see that. So that's no pressure from my part. So is that what you're looking to do? Is become an attorney? No, okay. But that's where the pressure is. Okay.
Well, not like constant pressure, but there's like a subtle, like you're smart enough.
Right.
Which is a humble brag that I shouldn't have said. But
no, it's good. It's fine.
I don't think I would do that. I just think there's something about... there's something beautiful about being a First Amendment attorney in a time of censorship.
Absolutely.
And I think that, like you said, censorship is happening, and it's a different sort of censorship that I think is very much entwined with civil rights of minorities. I think that people like censoring, like that type, it's just a different type of censorship that I would find interesting, but I wouldn't be like fighting for like Phelan Hetty in the Ginsburg trial, and I don't know. It's just, I like keeping it as a romantic idea.
That's fair.
Not as an actuality.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's completely fair. Completely fair. I do love though that you're going to continue to bring comedy into your life. I mean, rarely does it leave somebody's life unless comedy's really done something to them. But it's nice that you're actively bringing in vinyl comedy records. Do you ever buy based on the cover art? Because I will fully admit that I do that sometimes. Always. Yes. Okay.
Always. Well, like, because like what I was saying, I'm so oblivious to the history of comedy.
Sure.
Especially after that time period. So if you follow like after 1960, I have no idea.
Okay.
And that's decades. And it's when I think most stand-up comedy albums that you find in record stores, especially in the Midwest, where there's not this huge collection coming in, come from. And so I usually buy on the cover, I have to say. Sometimes I buy on name recognition. I've picked up a couple George Carlin records and then put them back down. But yeah, most of the time. I think there's that like isn't there that Steve Martin one with him in the bunny ears? Isn't that a record?
Yeah, that's Wild and Crazy Guy. I had to look. There's Wild and Crazy Guy. Let's Get Small is my particular favorite. That's one of the ones on the wall. I have a wall of about 11 records up here, so I have to look because I'm like, that's the different one, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I want that one. I think if I see that one next, I'll get it.
It's a good one. It's a good one. He gets weirdly not too dark, but when he gets dark, it's still goofy. It's a weird combination of shit. And I think if you're used to him as old Steve Martin now, it might be a nice, delightful surprise to see who he was before that. That'll be kind of fun.
And I think comedy records and stand-up for people I know as actors is really interesting that I want to like look more into, because like for example like Joan Rivers has this long history of stand-up comedy and being an incredible stand-up comedian in a time where there weren't a lot of female stand-up comedians, and I think, but all I see her as is like this old woman. She was like the fashion police, was she not?
100%. No, that was what her deal was.
I see her as is like making fun of what people wear, and growing up in like a time where like bullying was bad, I was like, that girl's so mean.
Yeah, right.
So I think like knowing where that comes from is something I need to fill in. I need to fill in a lot of my knowledge of comedy in general.
Her two albums are only like 20 years apart, and it's interesting because the first one is her getting ready to be pretty famous, and then the other one is she's world famous, she's Joan Rivers, she can say whatever the fuck she wants. So like it's interesting to listen to both of her records side by side because it's fascinating.
And I love like following comedians. Like that's something interesting to come back to this. Be monocentric with these ideas. I like when comedians get to that point where they can say whatever they want. Like, they aren't worried about it. Because, like, now John Mulaney can get on stage and say whatever he wants. His stand-up specials can be... He can make us a special with children, and hundreds of thousands of people will watch it on Christmas Day. And I think that, like, that type of power is super interesting, that type of creative power. It leads to some... I didn't particularly enjoy the Snack Lunch Bunch, but I think that it leads to creative energy that's brilliant usually.
Yeah, that was one of those moves where I'm like, oh, okay, good for you, doing it as quickly as you can. Like, you take the blank check and run with it if you can. Like, if they're gonna give it to you, make whatever weird fucking thing you want to. Like, we all want to make weird shit, and kind of the second you hit your peak, you're like, oh, what else can I do now? That is nature. Like, we're just naturally, we want to find the next thing. Even if like our core love is stand up, if his core love is indeed stand up, I'd love to talk to him about it. John, you're welcome on the show anytime. I'm sure he's listening. I always like towards the end to say, hey, why listen to this record in a couple sentences? And you don't have to be kept to 2 sentences, but roughly a couple sentences. Why listen to Lyndon Johnson's Only Hearts Club Band?
I think it's a good record. It gives you a sense of historical context to what's happening now that is brilliant. Like, it lets you laugh at politicians of the past and politicians that are now, because they're all just human and fallible, and they say funny things, and which are funnier when taken out of context.
Perfect. It's perfect. Absolutely right. This has been a great episode. Holy cow. You were delightful to talk to, and I love getting context, and I hate researching stuff I'm not necessarily interested in. So you did all the work for me.
I don't know if all that's correct.
You gave me, again, more than I would have gotten on my own. You don't understand.
It might all be wrong.
What if it's all
just
wrong?
Have made up history.
I love that idea. Here's what I would like you to do. Tell people where they can find your writing, if you're on Twitter, anything coming up. This is going to be out in quite some time, a few weeks, but tell people where they can find you.
I don't have a Twitter because I don't think my thoughts are important enough to
You're not a glutton for punishment. Come on. You're being smart.
That's insane. But you can read my writing on theobserver.com, which is the Notre Dame St. Mary's Holy Cross tri-campus newspaper. We're independent of the institution, which allows us to, I don't know, be independent. It's student run. There's no adults in the office.
Awesome.
So we're there till 6 a.m.
Wow.
But you can read my work there, and I'm currently writing for the Shepherd Express here in town, but it's all news writing, so I don't know how interesting it will be.
Wow. I mean, I'm sure it'll be good. It's coming from your brain, so it's nice to have somebody on here who, talks about something other than comedy, but also talks about comedy in a smart way, in a new way. I really appreciate you talking to me. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, well, thank you. I learned a lot from you, too. Like, it's fun. Comedy's not a major, huge, ginormous part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty big, but it's not... I wouldn't say it in my little intro in class.
Sure.
So I liked talking about it. And
you've got a very specific angle on it, and I think that helps. I think that helps a lot. As people who are comedy experts eventually realize they have to pick a thing that they are particularly in love with about comedy in order to write something intelligent, because you have to concentrate. It's hard. Like, that's why the only thing I picked was vinyl for now. I'm like, at the very least I can explore and people can tell me more about it than I already knew, and that happens so often. I love it. Yeah.
What's your favorite part of listening to comedy specifically on vinyl?
If it's, my absolute love is sketch comedy. So if it's a really well-produced sketch album, I rarely get to sit and close my eyes and listen. But when I can, if it's something that sucks me in and the sound effects and the music and the mixing and everything is perfect and the stereo is great, like living in that world for 45 minutes is just beautiful and perfect for me. And same goes with some stand-up. Some stand-up is really well mixed and brings you into a world. I would put Steve Martin in there because it's so absurd. It's just escape, pure escape, but that makes you giggle, I think so. I think that's it. But like really well mixed sketch is my favorite thing. And like that's my goal and stuff I make too but it takes a lot of work. It takes a ton of work. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I can imagine like why that would be your favorite, because there is so much thought into it.
Yeah.
I've never listened to a sketch album.
Oh my God.
I should.
There's
Maybe
so
that would be what I'll look up to.
There's so many things to recommend to you. Holy shit. Okay. I will think on it and recommend a few from like a few of the best groups. And then I will also write disclaimers about, hey, this part fucking sucks because it's racist. Every once in a while, something pops in and I'm like, okay, I'll just skip that track. Thanks so much.
That's so interesting. Like, how do you handle that, like, on the podcast and like just in
I try and address
to comedy?
I try and address it. If the person is not as willing to discuss it, I'm not proud of this, but I'll just move on without saying my own thoughts. But I try and make it clear. Like, I mean, a few things too. Like, I will no longer discuss Cosby or Woody Allen or Louis C.K. Luckily, he never came up. I'm not going to discuss creeps on the show because I do think it affects their comedy. A creep made that comedy, people. Like, it's something you got to realize. You can listen to it if you want. Go ahead. That's fine. If some people do. But if that kind of stuff comes up, I'm not a fan of saying, it was a different time. So, yeah, no shit, it was a different time. It was also a terrible thing to say because it was dehumanizing. So I try and address it as much as I can. If I'm going to talk about a record and it was somehow my choice, I have to be like, hey, this is something I didn't notice as a kid, if I happen to listen to it as a kid. And we address it. We'll talk about it. And even if it's just ooh, that was gross. And moving on, you at least have to acknowledge that what you're listening to has some bad shit. Like, these are imperfect, even if they're quote unquote well-meaning, which usually they're not. It's not easy because I just don't want to get in a fight with my guests. You know what I mean? Like, if one of them doesn't realize it or is making excuses, I wish I was a little braver in standing up for it. Sometimes I try. easier when it's just me on camera or on mic, just talking about something I like or hate, you know.
It's like so hard. And I think like it's happening in every sphere, like music and writing and anything. Like I have a friend who is a big fan of Woody Allen, and I just like sometimes like sometimes I'm just like I don't understand, but it's hard. It's like one of the hardest things is to like accept that an artist you like grew up with art might be tampered by like just grossness.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up wishing Bill Cosby was my other dad. I grew up thinking Woody Allen was the ultimate comedy writer, and he did write perfect jokes. Bill Cosby told perfect jokes. But the reason I reanalyze it is I go back and you're like, okay, people are like, you have to separate the art from the artist. I'm like, if you want to do that, that's your thing. But to me, I'd rather think about it more deeply than you are. And my thought process is like, well, a creep definitely wrote this. Like I said, like there's something in that person in there. If it's not, then it's not art. If you didn't put some of yourself in there, it's not art. And if you put some of yourself in there, a portion of that is still the person who did creepy, awful shit. And, you know, whatever your reasons are, you know, whatever excuse you come up with, which there's no good excuse for any of that shit. So I, at the very least, have to look at it in that perspective, and I'm not going to discuss it at length on a podcast. I might think about it, you know, a lot, but I don't have to sit and talk about it with somebody and pretend it never happened. That's my big thing. A lot of people, I think, want to just move on, denying that these things happen to people. And it's like, wait a minute, there are lives ruined here. Can we think about it that way?
Yeah, and I think that like those artists that you named are like inherently different than like artists who made racist jokes in the 50s.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, completely different. And I think that if you like when your sketch comedy record that you love comes by a racist sketch, I think you can denounce that differently because like it's an historical thing. And I think that that's what's so interesting about listening. That's one of the things that listening to comedy on vinyl is so important because it can't be edited. It exists in the form it is.
Yeah.
Like someone can sit there and scratch it out if they really want.
Sure.
But like it exists as a historical document in a way that like comedy on YouTube doesn't. Like if someone makes a joke now and like John Mulaney might be embarrassed of his TV show Mulaney, and he has nothing to be embarrassed about. Like it's completely it's a gem. But and I know that, and I make fun of it because in his stand-up, like the stand-up special I went to go see, he made fun of it. He told a long story about making fun of it. And so but he can get it deleted. Like he can copyright everything off the internet and off of Spotify and just get rid of it. And I think when artists put out records in the 50s, like when Van Meter had to call off the second First Family because John Kennedy, and they bought back the copies.
Right. Yeah,
they have them now, and they can destroy them.
Yeah. And
then it can never exist. And I think that like that physical form is so important. But sorry, you're trying to end the podcast.
No, you're fine. Please, this is a good discussion, and I'm glad you asked it because there are a lot of times when this stuff comes up and it's awkward and uncomfortable, and I want to cut it out because, frankly, I'm afraid I'm going to get a lot of shit from a bunch of anti-PC people. And the thing is, like, I don't think most of these people really listen to my show anymore. I think the people who listen to my show know who I am, and you know, and I so it's actually it's good. It's a nice breath of fresh air to talk about, and that stuff is a historical record. It would be weird to deny that those things were ever said. You can discuss them though, you know, like it's worth discussing, even if, again, like I say, if it's saying, oh, that was racist, that sucks, let's move on. Like, you know, just addressing the fact that it's racist and you acknowledge that, and you can see if the rest of it happens to be worth it. I will tell you, there are some records where it's not worth it, but there are some where it's like, oh, this was a shitty misstep, and you know, there are a few I might, if I get some of these people on my podcast, I might ask them about it. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to do this, but you know, you're curious, like where is your brain now? Do you still feel the same way? Like, you know, you want to know.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I would love to have you back. No pressure, but you were a great guest, and maybe we'll pick some stuff. I will definitely send you some recommendations if you're up for it, because there's some good.
I would love
stuff.
That.
All right.
I love
awesome.
Recommendations.
I'm
still forming my opinions.
Yeah, good.
So I love that. I love recommendations.
And you feel free to hate it all. I don't care. I just want you to have the option to hate them or like them. Everybody, thank you for listening. Check out the Professional Blur podcast, which by the time this comes out should still be in its second season. That is about my work as an extra in movies and TV. So please check that out. It's StolenDress.com. Thank you all for listening. And as always, have a good thing. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of StolenDress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klom. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. You can email us at podcast@comedyonvinyl.com. You can also send snail mail to StolenDress Entertainment, P.O. Box 805, Burbank, California, 91503. Subscribe to Comedy on Vinyl on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It helps. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Comedy on Vinyl, or find everything in one place at comedyonvinyl.com. A major portion of Comedy on Vinyl has been underwritten by Stand Up Records. Please visit standuprecords.com for all your comedy needs and tune in to the new Stand Up Records channel available on the Roku, where you can also find select episodes of this podcast. Visit StolenDress.com to listen to our other podcasts, watch videos, and imbibe freely of our multimedia content going back 15 plus years. StolenDress Entertainment.
Hey, it's my turn.